Very interesting image. The trees, the different sizes going back. The larger one on the right-hand side keeps you from going off the right-hand side. But overall, it's really flat, isn't it? You think of all this beautiful texture up in the sky and in the foreground. So let's take a look. That now jumps out at you and has three-dimensionality. You can decide that you don't want to have the colors as rich and all those aspects, but look at the three-dimensionality. See the detail in the shadows of this large tree, but also see how the darker aspect of this tree stands out three-dimensional against the light area, and these trees standing out, and the tops of the trees here against the yellow in the horizon. Watch the difference. See how they're just flat. They're not really jumping out. They're not three-dimensional. But if we look at this way, it is three-dimensional. And the top of the big tree, the leaves and the branches here and here stand out more three-dimensional from the sky. That's what you want in a landscape, three-dimensionality, because that's what you see when you're standing there. Flat, getting there. Good composition, good foreground, good upper sky area with leading lines coming in from many areas. Now let's get the drama of the sky, of the foreground, and let's have the lighter area right down through the center. You notice also that there's detail in the trees on the right, detail in the left area, detail up in the clouds. Let's take a look at this way. It's overall flat light. And we see this landscape now and have the light coming down from the heavens, the clouds, and the lightness here, lightening up that area and having the reflection of the color of that cloud in through here. Much more interesting. Beautiful scene. Much more, just beautiful. So getting there. I also changed the width of this one. This seemed beautiful, but this long expanse just was crying to show as a long expanse. So just changing the width, which is very easy. Image size, and unclick the connection between the width and the height, and then just change the width. Look at the difference. There. Much more impact. Impact is what you want when you are submitting to an exhibit or a competition. The judges need to be excited instantly. The judges see images passing by them within seconds. They view the images, click, 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 click. It's the ones that really hit them when it hits the screen the first time. Another beautiful scene. Look at this little house in the fog, and the lower left corner, beautiful, beautiful upper sky area that could be really taking in nicely. So how do we work this image? Bring out those colors. Look at the sky, and that darker area at the top pushes your eye down. The darker areas down here pushes your eye in. You see the building, but you also now are centering into the center of the image. Here we go from there to there. Much more important in landscapes than any other types, other than maybe portraiture. So when you're almost there, the foreground, middle ground, background, good depth of field, very strong composition. Impact. When I say some impact, you'll see the difference of what I talk about instant impact in the wow images, but some impact carries a message and certainly gets an emotion from you. It has impact. The emotion of you feeling this whole scenery. And this, by the way, is a very famous castle in Scotland, Ely an Donan. It's one of my favorite locations to take a workshop when I take the workshop in Scotland. And we go up on the hill. I discovered how to get up on the hill and shoot down in this way onto this image. See the background up in the top area here, just enough to give you that whole feeling of color and sunset. But the main area here, the dark against the light of the water in this area, good detail down through here, a little darker down here, pushing your eye back up into that. So impact, has somewhat of an emotional aspect of the sunset. This one also, beautiful colors, detail, sky's working nicely. This one, in fact, I don't know if I did or not, but I would have this even be more long rectangular image. But I did bring out the colors. Look at the difference of the sky, how much more impact this will have. So impact is very important in a landscape. You want the viewer to think, oh, yes, oh, I would like to be there. Oh, that's just beautiful. Oh, yes. And in this case, it's a little harder to have a place to stand. Maybe you could feel yourself standing here looking up at this mountain, but look at the three-dimensionality of this. Look where the big, brightest highlight is, which is in through this area. And you would say, well, yes, the sky is light too, but it's not as bright as this area because this is the main subject. And a little brightness coming up from leading lines up to this rock structure here. So let's look at it before and after. Big difference, big difference. I don't know if you've ever been to Stonehenge. It's quite an experience. This is outside of London. This is a wonderful shot, has impact. The clouds are wonderful. Having the sky, oh, so much of the sky, and then the rocks down at the bottom in the center works really well. But important is the vignetting and the beautiful structure down in through here, the colors in the background, and the structure of those clouds. If it was flat sky, this image would not have the impact that it has. And the light coming in from this direction left down onto this, and then a brighter area in the greens here, and the darker area in the foreground pushes your eye in, darker area along the top pushes your eye down. Three-dimensionality, foreground, place to stand, middle ground, background, and the middle ground where the highlight is the most important part of the image. Beautiful waterfall. When we are first, at least when I was first capturing images, especially in Yosemite with the waterfalls, I was just overwhelmed by the waterfalls. They are so beautiful. And I would have so many images that I would look at them now and think, oh yeah, it's just a waterfall. Well, this is a very, very well done waterfall, in my opinion. It's not just the waterfall. You have that foreground, you have those rocks, you have it's not just water falling from the top of a mountain or down through. This really is very, very interesting image to me. So let's open up it a little bit. See the difference. Here is where there's shadow and there's detail in there, but you're not seeing it. And the waterfall is now looking good, but what about the highlight here in the center? So let's open it up some. Now we have this nice color and detail in the shadow areas. There's detail in this lower portion of the waterfall, highlights on this portion. If you squint your eyes a little bit, you'll see that this center area is much brighter than the other portion of the waterfall. You even, I think, lose concept that this is a waterfall other than just it's a beautiful image. Go back to this. This now looks flat. As good as all that looks when it first hits the screen, this really gives three-dimensionality. Place for you to stand, detail here, more depth in through here. Let's look at that bottom part of the water here. See this here, down in the center. It doesn't have as much three-dimensionality as this one, which is bringing out the highlights and the shadows in that area, and the water bright coming off the rock in this area. Quite a difference. Elicits an emotion, has an impact. Well, what a neat composition in the sense of these figures standing against the waterfall. What an enormous waterfall. In this foreground, the colors so beautiful. Where's the brightest area? Well, certainly the brightest area is here in the center, but this upper portion is very bright. So I tend to come in here and go up the waterfall and then look around in here. Let's change that around. Darker area up here, matching the intensity of the light in the lower right area, bringing out some highlights here and having the figures stand out more against the waterfall. This is now more three-dimensional. You could feel that you could be there with them. You see the waterfall now, and the darker area at the top pushes you back down to the waterfall. Watch the difference. See how your eye goes up to the top in the upper portion of this image, even though this now stands out, but the majority of time that you look at this image compositionally is at the top. Now you look at that waterfall for sure, and these figures standing against it. And if we remove some of that upper part, let's come back. So your eye comes in here and you look at the top and it's dark, it pushes you down, but that's a lot of area up there when the main message is in this area. So let's just crop down on that a little bit more. How much more now? You can't stop looking at those figures standing there. See, they get lost here a little bit. Move that upper part. Wow, they are there. Waterfall. Good clouds back here. It's light against light, so a little bit more contrast back there will bring out the three-dimensionality, the foreground. And in this case, I would have preferred to have more of the water down in the right, just personal. So do a shot. In fact, do a panorama vertically. So take a portion of the upper portion, that's one shot. Second shot is the middle. Third shot is the bottom. Put them together, and then you have multiple options for cropping, changing. Now let's look at this. See the three-dimensionality? Go back to this and watch how the things merge together. The light against the light. Even these trees, they're dark, but against light, but not as three-dimensional. And this brightest area is in this portion of the mountain, not the waterfalls. What's the message? I thought the message was the waterfalls in a beautiful scene. So let's take it the other way around. Lighten up the waterfall. Take a little bit of the blue out of the water. Darken the mountain so that it stands out against the clouds. You have now much more texture and detail in the clouds. Watch that. See, the clouds are flat. There's really detail there. Just bring it out. And the tree stands out more three-dimensional. Landscapes, I keep using that word, three-dimensional. Landscapes really need three-dimensionality. That's what you see when you're standing there. That's how you should present it to your viewer. So I then thought, let's make it more of a narrow vertical. It's a vertical. In fact, I think I would have thought about this doing maybe a more of a rectangular, but since it's a vertical, let's take a look. Bringing that in like that, and all I did was scrunch. That was another term I came up with, scrunch and stretch. Scrunch so that I didn't crop anything. I'm just bringing them in tighter. And now I think the waterfall stands out even more from here to there. Think about what you're emphasizing and how you can make it have even more emphasis. Beautiful black and white, beautiful waterfall, the clouds up in here, but you see the areas here that have detail. Certainly this is your brightest area and your eye goes there, but then I want to see some of the aspects that are in this image. I thought I changed it for you, but I didn't. So we'll go to wow, wow, wow. So you have all the things I've talked about, a place to stand, three-dimensionality, strong leading lines. I shoot a lot of panoramas for landscapes. No pure black or pure white. If you mind, or if you as a viewer think you should look into the dark areas, because when you're standing there and you look in the dark areas, your eyes actually open up and look and give you detail. You then look at a brighter area, your eyes are really closing down and you see detail in the whites. So no pure blacks or pure white unless you are doing it from an artistic standpoint. Do selective saturation. Try to tell a story of what you're seeing in front of you And boy, special light. Watch when I show you some of these images related to special light. And I don't just mean the flat light or the light coming from the side or from the front. It's color and backlight and side light and light from above, or all the wonderful lights that make an image stand out even more. Special light. Leading lines, special light. Look at this highlight of this water leading you right up into this structure here. And this light and color over here, but it stays to the left. That is the brightest area, so your eye tends to go there at first. Then I think it comes and follows this and looks, and then the darker area along the top pushes your eye down in, leading lines, working throughout this book, even up in the sky, the clouds, leading lines, leading lines. This structure on the right-hand side fills in that empty space. If that wasn't there, it would be too much of an empty space, and your eye would be there and your mind would start to look around there. Instant impact, three-dimensionality, place to stand, special light, light coming down in through the mountains. Lighter area against darker area. Darker area against lighter areas. The light rays coming down, color here down in the foreground, pushing you up, three-dimensionality. Three-dimensionality, leading lines, instant impact of color, structure, all the elements playing together really well with each other. Here's one, which is interesting related to this. We go from a total warm tone to cold tone. Really flows in there very interestingly. The sky with the stars in there, very nice. Detail in the foreground, a very nice vertical, really interesting things here. So you think, where's the brightest area? Actually, the brightest area is right here, which creates the center. You have foreground, middle ground, background, dark against light, good ridge line of dark against the light, ridge line, dark against the light, much darker along the top, which pushes the eye back down. And even down in this area, it's darker than right through here to push the eye up to this lighter area, yet there's detail in these areas. Containment. Keep the eye in. The tree becomes a containment. It's keeping your eye from flowing up and off the upper right portion. This tree, containment, that once you come in from the left, this larger area and this area down here in the lower right are strong elements and push you back into the main area. Even without them pushing you there, here is the brightest area. Beautifully well done. Leading line coming right up to what the photographer wants you to see. Detail in the tree, beautiful textures, details, slight highlight on this, detail down in the lower right-hand corner. Nice color, contrast of color saturation between the lighter bluish to the warm colors down in here. Striking image. I'll come back. Watch the impact the minute you see that image. Watch. Even compared to this, which is a very nice image, watch the impact that you have when that hits the screen. Instant impact. Instant impact. Instant impact. Long rectangular format works extremely well with this. The figures here are certainly interesting and add to the image, but you see again shadowing, color and darkening. Darker area here, just enough to keep all the detail there, but push you into the image. The highlight from the setting sun. So this area is the brightest area here. This even has a blowout, which in this case I find acceptable. It would not have any loss of detail in this bright area here. And if you bring your eye over to the right and you look back to the highlights, you come right back to the center of interest of this image, right in through this area. Darker area up in the sky, at the top of the sky, pushes the eye down. a little darker here from the left of the sun area. And in the upper right, a little darker, darker down in through this side to keep pushing you down through here. So let me go back. And when this hits the screen, you watch or think about where your eye goes instantly. From here to there. Great detail everywhere, three-dimensionality, place for you to stand here. Detail all in the areas, good three-dimensionality on these mountains in the background. Wow, instant impact, instant impact. And when I saw this, I kept thinking how well done this is in one aspect of this tree and all the beauty of it. I would guess this is a composite. I have no problem with composites related to architecture. It's a piece of art. There are the birds and birds up in here. That's really beautifully done up in that area. This is here. The only aspect I had for this is that this area down in here is blocked up. Let's see what we can do. If we open that up, look at the beauty down in here. How much more you see in this image and feel the image. Let's come back here. Yes, this has a feeling of maybe spooky even. It's just my preference to see detail in areas where my mind wants to see it. And so I wanted that there, still have the eerie feeling of the structure in the left-hand side, great detail of the highlight coming down onto the tree. The tree now in this area in the center is the brightest area, darker a little along the top, especially in the upper right. Good detail down here in the lower area. So you go from here to here. Maybe I would darken this now. I see this on my screen. Darken this area here a little bit more to bring the tree out. What a great lead. Instant impact. Watch the instant impact from here. All right. This hits the screen. You're the judge. You're one of the judges. How could you not relate to this image? Here it is. You go from here, even though this is a great image. And then it's just the screen. Instant impacts. Great leading lines. Great long exposure to allow the water to flow. Darker right along the top. Darker a little bit in the lower area here. A little darker on the sides. Brighter here. No blowouts in any of the white areas. Nothing, no blowout here. There's texture in that light area back there. Instant impact. And every time I see this image, and I've used it a couple of times now, I am really taken with how well this is done. Great detail in through the mountain areas here, up in the sky, the highlight, a little bit of loss of texture right here, and I'm okay with that. Three-dimensionality, dark against light along the ridge. You notice how there's a little bit of light in the clouds right there to bring out that three-dimensionality. Down in through here, light against dark instead of dark against light. Beautiful detail down in here. Then I thought, let's make it a little wider and let's see how that looks. That actually plays for me a little better, but that looks like the flow of the land to me, of the sand in the foreground. This beautiful, but now I can roam around in there, feel the difference, the emotional aspect, not only impact, but emotion, elicit an emotion, and you will win the judges. What instant impact could you have? And talk about dark against light. Wow, that really jumps out. Good detail down in the foreground, darker in the top, the color saturations, everything is working so well with that image. Allowing some extra space for this mountain in the right-hand side, the dark against the light areas here. Really well done. I thought I'd put this one in just for the fun of it, because landscapes can be fun. They don't have to just be a pure landscape. I thought this was very creative and all the aspects of where's the brightest area. It's here. It has some detail in there. Good detail down in this area. The horizon is low, and you get the feeling of this rising up through there. I thought, wow, that is really neat. Then I thought, wouldn't it even be better as a vertical? I think it's just a personal choice which way you would want to do it. This, I think, works really well. But think about how you might want to show and present an image This, I think, concentrates more on what's happening here with that possible rising up into the sky. Just a difference. But this was handled really well. Beautiful landscape, foreground, place to stand, three-dimensionality down there, the darks against the light, the tree over here on the left pushing you in, the tree here. This is enough for me that it's in. I would like a little bit more, but it's not just cropped down on the edge here where it would not either be in or out. So I would like a little bit more there, but it's working well. And the sky, I think, could be just a little darker. And then I thought I'd throw this in just for the fun of it. We should allow, and we do today, have composites, interesting ones, comical ones, uh, ethereal ones. No reason a landscape has to be exactly what you saw when you were standing there if you want to be creative about some of your work. My website is up. You can go there. It's marianaphotography.com. I have many galleries that you can take a look at those. Here are all the different galleries I have in there. You can click on those. And I think you should just take a different view of the world and look at your landscapes a lot differently than you have been. Now I will listen to, as soon as I get this out of here, I will listen to, whoops, sorry about that. Any comments you might want to make, any questions you want to do.
John, was that picture you of when you were a little boy? Taking a different view?
It could have been, actually, yes.
I thought so.
Even then, I was a curious little fellow.
Oh, good. Okay.
John, I have a question about the suns that were added in. When you talk about viewing from left to right, is there a preference of where the sun is placed when it doesn't, let's say, matter? I mean, sometimes it's pretty obvious that the light needs to come from a direction based on what was taken, but there was one picture you showed in the sun. It could have been on either side, and I just
Yes.
You have a
Yes.
preference.
Good question. Here's how I would think about that for my work. Depending on how the image has a containment or a structure on the right-hand side that moves the eye more into the left, then I think you could have the sun in the upper left area and shining down into the image, because then whatever structure is on the right is going to push the eye back in. If the main portion of the image is down here and over here is a larger structure on the left, then I think the light coming down from the upper right. So I think it depends on where it is that you want the viewer's eye to go and how do you want those rays to work. But more importantly, in relation to structure and composition, it's what keeps the eye going off the right or what keeps the eye going off the left. Then just place your sunbeams in relation to the main area that's the main highlight. And boy, I think either you mentioned or somebody earlier, Luminar's sun ray feature is so easy to use and so creative. It's so wonderful to put into a scene.
Yeah, I'm starting to use it for more than just sun.
Yes, indeed.
Flowers and whatnot. Well, we heard it here first from you, so
Any other questions?
thank you.
John, when you're shooting fog, do you have a basic formula you use? Do you open up a stop?
Good question. Here's what I recommend always on a workshop. The first thing I do when I walk up to say to somebody, okay, let me see how you shot this. The first thing I'll say is, let me see the shot and then show me the histogram. The histogram for my first shot tells me exactly what I should do related to the fog or the clouds. You can't know right up front. In fact, let me back up from that. The first thing I do is set aperture. If I want total sharpness from foreground to background, then I'm going to use an f/22 or something in that layer. Then I'll look through the viewfinder to see how the histogram is reading. If you can't see the live histogram, then guess at the exposure. Actually, you can move your controls. If you're doing total manual, set the ISO to whatever you want for your image. Let's say you're setting it at 800 ISO. Then you move the shutter speed to get the meter in the center. Take the shot and then look at the histogram, because the histogram will show you if you have more room to the right, open up. And you always, if you have more room to the right of the histogram, you always want to open up more, meaning get more exposure, because lightening up the shadow areas can create noise. So if you move those more to the right, the shadow areas are captured better, and you haven't moved it all the way to the right, so you've not blown out the highlights, so you know you have texture in the highlights. And that way, your final enhancements can be much better than if there's just a lot of room on the right-hand side. So I just do a first shot based on doing the adjustments of the metering for what I'm looking at, and then look at my histogram and do adjustments from there. So I don't have a formula that says this is what I should do, because it could be different light, and the histogram just tells it to you instantly. The interesting thing about the histogram for me is when I was shooting large format, I was shooting 5x7 negatives. I had a handheld spot meter, a 1 degree spot meter, and I would be required, in order to get a good negative, to meter the highlight, meter the shadows, see how many f-stops in between, know what my film held as f-stops. And if it didn't hold enough f-stops, then I had to sacrifice something, or I needed to put a filter on to adjust. All that stuff I went through to just do that, the histogram tells me instantly. So all that work I did to do that, to capture a negative, look at the histogram, and it will tell you whether or not you can open up or need to shut down.
Right.
Anything else?
Just a quick question on, I know you ended with getting creative with composites, and is there a movement to go to that, or that's okay in competition? Because I always thought traditionally landscape was,
Good question.
kind of taboo to do that if it's a
Glad you asked that.
competition.
Glad you asked that. By the way, Pam has been a member of the Booth Photography Guild for a long time, and she's doing some special work right now. She was on the Digital Review this morning, showed a flower that I thought was just special. So just good work, Pam.
Thank you, John. It's very kind of you.
I think that, well, state your question in another way. What is it that,
Well, it's just, I know that it's a traditional landscape, if you're entering in a competition, or if you're
Yes.
looking at a traditional landscape.
yes, I get it, yes. I have, if you're on my mailing list, my general mailing list, now you're starting to see what I'm sending out, calling special artistic, a special digital artist, I think is what I'm calling, special digital artist. And you're seeing people doing this really creative stuff. I think that within the next 2 years, a new category is arising out of photography, known as, I don't know what yet, but maybe digital art. Maybe they'll call it digital art, rather than photographic digital art. And I'll give you some subtleties about that, but let's assume that it's digital art. What is happening, I see, is that there is a movement toward this creativity, because the tools are there to do it, and more artistic people are using them. I just don't think it's recognized yet as a category, but I think it will. And I think that some camera clubs haven't yet embraced it. And so if you're submitting, or if you're in a club and you're submitting to their competition and you want to win, not just show your work, if you want to win, you put something in that isn't relevant to that camera club. But I think that's changing. And the more progressive clubs, you were from this area, so you know Southeastern Photographic Society, they are showing much more of this kind of artistic work, composites. I think we're going there.